So we're only a couple of hours away from AEW Revolution live on pay-per-view, and realistically what everyone is talking about is this mystery signing. I know we've done a couple of videos on it, but I want to do one final rundown as to some of the names that people are talking about, some of the names that have been speculated, some of the names that I really think are way off of the mark and I don't think it will be, and some of the names that I think are most likely, and my actual prediction as to who this mystery signing will be. Now, if you're not familiar, of course, former WWE Superstar The Big Show, now known as Paul Wight, his real name, made his AEW debut this past week on Dynamite, and during his short promo, he revealed that AEW have signed a Hall of Fame worthy talent to a multi-year contract, and that person would be revealed this Sunday, tonight, live on pay-per-view for AEW Revolution. Now, when it comes to AEW Revolution, we will be doing a live watch-along here on the channel, so be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. You'll be notified when we go live tonight, discussing AEW, reacting to everything as it happens. But what I do want to talk about, as I mentioned, is get into some of these names. There's quite a few names that have been speculated. This has certainly been really hyped up. It's been really hyped up. And I think that's actually part of the problem, slightly, is that expectations are very high, very, very high. And I think, to be honest, I think that's justified, because the way that AEW, the way that Tony Khan has been hyping up as to who this potential signing could be. I mean, they mentioned the phrase Hall of Fame worthy. They mentioned that it was one of Tony Khan's favorite wrestlers of all time. They mentioned that this was going to be earth-shattering. So there certainly is a massive, massive topic of conversation as to who is the mystery person? Who is this Hall of Fame worthy talent that has signed to AEW? Nobody knows. I think any videos and any reports that we've seen so far have been just speculation. This is what this video is. It's just speculation, it's just prediction, it's just opinion. That's what we do here on the channel. So let's get straight into it. Let's see who we think this potentially could be. The name I think people are talking about the most when it comes to this is, of course, Christian. Now, we did a video talking about it potentially being Christian the other day. The interesting fact about Christian, of course, is that if you'd have asked people 7 days ago, if 7 days ago you'd asked people, do you think Christian could sign with AEW? I think 99.9% of people would have said, no, there's no way. Why? Because about a month or so ago, Christian returned to in-ring action. He was medically cleared by the WWE, and he appeared in the Royal Rumble match. Nobody saw Christian's return to the ring coming. That was one thing. And with Christian returning to the ring, it was kind of the same. I think people thought it was going to be the same with Edge, in the sense that Christian was medically cleared to return to the ring. With this medical return to the ring, with this clearance to return and wrestle once again, there were obviously plans in place for Christian to have something to do post the Royal Rumble match. He had the big reunion with Edge in the match. He was in the final 4 participants in that match. I think everyone thought, okay, obviously, Christian signed a new WWE contract. He's an in-ring performer now. He's going to have a match at WrestleMania. There's going to be all these creative plans. Of course, Edge won the Royal Rumble, so Christian's got to factor into that, right? Right? Well, maybe not, because we've heard nothing since. There's been nothing but fan speculation and fan talk as to what is the status of Christian. There's been no hard or fast line from WWE about what's going to happen with Christian. There's been no report that Christian signed a new deal. There's been no report that there are any plans for Christian to be used going forward. There's been no reports about Christian having a match at WrestleMania or anything like that. Nobody knows. And when it comes to Christian possibly being revealed as this mystery Hall of Fame worthy signing, the speculation really ramped up over the last few days when initially Wrestling Inc. came out. They did a report saying that Christian was indeed signed to a WWE contract. Now, Fightful then released a contradicting report saying they weren't able to independently verify that was the case. Now, since Fightful went live with that report, Wrestling Inc. actually retracted their original report saying that Christian had signed a WWE contract, saying that actually Christian previously had a contract with Fox as an analyst for the FS1 show WWE Backstage, but it appears that has subsequently expired, and Christian is in fact not under contract with WWE right now. So it would appear that despite being medically cleared to return to the ring a couple of months ago at the Royal Rumble, despite being in the final 4 participants in that Rumble match, despite making this miraculous recovery, it looks like Christian, 1, is not signed to a WWE contract, 2, it doesn't look like there are any plans for Christian creatively right now in WWE, and 3, it would appear that Christian hasn't been backstage at any recent WWE shows inside the WWE Thunderdome since the Royal Rumble. That has led many to speculate, saying that maybe AEW is aware of this, and AEW has made a very significant offer to Christian. He certainly fits the bill. If you're going to talk about Hall of Fame worthy talents, it's kind of been a running joke, hasn't it, in recent years, and especially since Christian retired in 2014, 2015, one of the running jokes was, when is Christian going to actually be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame? He was more than worthy with his tag team work with Edge. He was more than worthy with his singles work that he achieved throughout his career. He's a former 2-time world champion. He's a former multiple-time world champion in Impact Wrestling, former multiple-time Intercontinental champion, tag team champion, one of the revolutionaries of the ladder match and the TLC match. Christian absolutely is a Hall of Fame worthy candidate. I've seen some people, saying that would Christian necessarily fit the hype of all of this discussion right now of being this really truly Hall of Fame worthy talent in this big signing. I think when it comes to Christian, look, initially when people were saying Christian's name, I felt it was really far-fetched because of what happened and how recently we saw Christian on a WWE screen at the Royal Rumble. As time has rumbled on and as more reports and more speculation comes out, it kind of feels more and more like that it could be Christian. And I went more in depth with this in the video and we spoke about it at length, so be sure to check that out. But my opinion really hasn't changed on it. If it is Christian, it's a massive signing. It's a massive scalp for AEW. Is it to the level of people are expecting this to be? I think it is. And I think the only reason people might be disappointed by this is I think sometimes people's imagination can run wild. And that's sometimes the problem with these kind of situations, is that the reveal to some people is never going to satisfy them. In the grand scheme of things, if you take a step back, Christian signed with AEW. If Christian hadn't have appeared in the Royal Rumble in January, people would have said this is crazy, it's a massive coup for AEW. The fact that Christian did appear in the Royal Rumble in January, and he was medically cleared by WWE, and he looked fantastic. The fact that AEW would have been able to steal Christian from under the nose of WWE would be a massive deal. So, look, if it's Christian, I think it's a big deal. I'm leaning, if I'm going to predict anyone, I think Christian's probably going to be my pick, and that is almost surprising myself, because a couple of days ago I would have said that's laughable, but now, look, things have changed, things are always evolving, and it feels more and more like this is an actual possibility right now. And it would be a massive signing. It would be a massive signing for AEW, it would be a massive get. You also have to factor in former AEW World Champion Jon Moxley. He recently did an interview of Inside the Ropes with Gary Cassidy, great journalist, be sure to check him out. And Jon Moxley name-dropped Christian as one of the guys he wanted to actually bring into AEW. Now, do I think Jon Moxley knows what's going on? I don't. I don't think Jon Moxley knows. And frankly, I'm not even sure Jon Moxley cares that much about who AEW are or aren't signing. But it's interesting that he would name-drop Christian, and then only a few days later, suddenly the reports of Christian going to AEW start to ramp up, and then you hear these people saying that they saw the chief legal officer of AEW followed and then unfollowed Christian. Of course, they would be familiar with Christian's contract and helping draw up that contract, wouldn't they? So that's interesting as well. So Christian is going to be my pick, but of course there are a plethora of other names that people have talked about. One being Kurt Angle. We spoke about this yesterday because Kurt Angle, of course, was posting the videos on social media, got a lot of people talking. Kurt Angle was appearing inside of his ring gear again. Kurt Angle's been retired from in-ring action since 2019. His retirement was really not satisfactory at all. During his recent, the launch of his podcast recently, the Kurt Angle Show and ad-free shows, be sure to check that out. He expressed that he wasn't happy with the way that his retirement played out in WWE. He was 14th on a 16-match card at WrestleMania 35. He was against Baron Corbin. He lost in 6 minutes. It just wasn't what we wanted, and it certainly wasn't what Kurt Angle wanted in terms of his retirement from WWE. Now, obviously, since his retirement a couple of years ago, Kurt Angle, you can go on his Instagram to check this out, is in the shape of his life. He launched his own fitness nutrition brand, Physically Fit. I think what's it called? Physically Fit Supplements or Nutrition or something like that. And Kurt Angle looks to be in the best shape that he's been in 5, 6, 7 years. So certainly physically, could Kurt Angle go for one more run inside of an AEW ring? Absolutely. And the video that he posted yesterday certainly teased that. However, we have seen a follow-up from that video over the course of the last few hours. And essentially, Kurt Angle, as I think most people thought, was just trolling social media because the to be continued, and basically it was the same video, it played again, and at the end of it, it zoomed out and there was a picture of the Kurt Angle Show logo, his podcast, and it said, "Tune in." Now, obviously, does this rule out Kurt Angle appearing tonight at Revolution? Of course not. It could be a red herring. It could attempt to be an attempt to throw people off. But I don't think it is Kurt Angle. Could you rule out Kurt Angle appearing inside of an AEW ring in the future? I don't think you could. I think if it was going to happen, it'd probably need to happen in the next year or so. But if you look at the physical condition that Kurt Angle is in, absolutely it could happen. And I don't think Kurt Angle is completely closed off to the idea of wrestling maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more matches for a company to end the career on his terms, to end his career and retire the way that he envisaged himself retiring in WWE in the first place. So I don't think you can rule Kurt Angle out, but as far as Revolution tonight, I just don't see Kurt Angle doing it, especially considering he's been doing all of this teasing on social media. I think it's too obvious. It's too obvious, so I don't think it's going to be Kurt Angle. I've seen some other names that people have said, and these are when we start getting into sort of territory I really don't think it is. I've seen people said Tessa Blanchard. I'm going to keep this one relatively short. I don't think it's Tessa Blanchard. I think if it was revealed to be Tessa Blanchard, I think, well, there would be uproar, wouldn't there, for a variety of reasons. Obviously, the allegations of bullying, racist language, all that kind of baggage that comes with it. I think just in the grand scheme of things, they're hyping this up as a Hall of Fame worthy talent. Tessa Blanchard is, 24, 25 years of age? She hasn't even had a career long enough to be a Hall of Fame worthy talent. So I really don't think it's her. I really don't think it's Tessa Blanchard or anything like that. Could you rule out Tessa Blanchard appearing for AEW in the future? Probably not. I think it's highly, highly unlikely. I've spoken about Tessa Blanchard at length before here on the channel as well. AEW, I just don't think is that interested. I know we've seen some reports that say they are, and then they're not, and then they are, and then they're not. I've always said if I think Tessa Blanchard is going to sign with anyone in North America, I think it'll be WWE, purely because WWE really doesn't care about bad PR. And signing Tessa Blanchard, there's a lot. There's a lot of negativity that comes with it. As I mentioned, those allegations of racist language, bullying, being difficult to work with, all that kind of stuff is very, very heavy, and certainly a lot of people would be talking about that. When you think of WWE, as I mentioned, they really don't care. I mean, we've still got people working on the WWE roster that have been accused of terrible things during the speaking out movement, especially a lot on the NXT UK brand. You've still got the likes of the Velveteen Dream and Austin Theory still working in NXT. This is a company that actively takes money from the Saudi government when all of that political madness is going on. This is the same company that still has the likes of Donald Trump in the Hall of Fame. This is the same company that when it comes to the Saudi deal as well, didn't have the likes of Darren Young performing because he was a homosexual, didn't have Aleister Black performing because he has a religious tattoo, didn't have females performing just because they were females. This is also a company as well that banned their talent using third-party platforms during a pandemic when they actually needed to make a bit of extra money because they weren't getting it from live events. This is also the same company that furloughed and fired a load of talent during a pandemic too. So WWE doesn't care about negative PR. They just don't. So I think Tessa Blanchard, if she goes anywhere, it'll be WWE. I'd be very surprised if if Tessa Blanchard goes to AEW in the future. I certainly don't think she's going to be revealed as this Hall of Fame worthy signing because she's just not Hall of Fame worthy right now. I mean, it's as simple as that. Now, another name people have been saying is Mark Henry. Now, of course, Mark Henry does fit the category of being a WWE Hall of Famer. He has had a Hall of Fame worthy career. If it was Mark Henry, I think a lot of people would be really underwhelmed. And I know by technicality, as I mentioned, people will say, well, he is in the Hall of Fame. Look, I was a big fan of Mark Henry. I really was. 2011 Mark Henry, the Hall of Fame, a Hall of Pain. Obviously, he was on fire during that period of time. And he came back around 2013 when he came back and had the match against Ryback at WrestleMania, and actually his return when he threw around Rey Mysterio and Sin Cara on Monday Night Raw. That version of Mark Henry, that badass, just destroy anyone version of Mark Henry, I was a massive fan. And obviously, the salmon pink jacket version of Mark Henry, he should have won the WWE Championship during that feud with John Cena. He was on fire during that period of time. I'm a big Mark Henry fan. Do I have any desire to see Mark Henry in AEW? The answer is no. I think Mark Henry's time has passed. I think his contributions to the business are fine as they are. I know he's been making noises about wanting to have at least one more match. He's down to, I think, like 312 or something like that. He's down to, close to 300 pounds. He feels like he's in good shape. He feels that he can have a couple more matches. I think he's spoken about having a match or two this year. That could be in AEW. That's absolutely is a possibility it could be in AEW. But is he the Hall of Fame, huge signing that's certainly going to get a lot of buzz? The answer is no. The answer is no. If Mark Henry did appear in an AEW match, would it be newsworthy? Yes. Would it be this massive, earth-shattering, groundbreaking announcement? No. And I think a lot of people would be underwhelmed by it. I think it would fit the required sort of specifications of this announcement and signing by technicality that he is a Hall of Famer. I would be very surprised, and if AEW did hype this up and revealed it to me, Mark Henry, it would be very disappointing, I feel personally. And again, that's nothing against Mark Henry. it's just, I just don't have the desire to see Mark Henry compete inside of an AEW ring. I'm fine with his contributions to the business. If he wants to have a couple more matches, great. You can have him inside of an AEW ring, I would watch. But to hype this up as this huge Hall of Fame worthy signing, not so much. That just wouldn't be for me. Now let's get into some other names. Whenever you get any signing, especially with AEW, CM Punk's name comes up. Now, I know CM Punk has come out and said, look, it's not me. It isn't going to be me. I don't take much stock in that, in the sense that people are going, well, he said it wasn't him, so it's not him. I always respond to that was, well, what do you expect him to say? Is he going to come out and go, yeah, it is me, tune into Revolution on Sunday? Of course he's not. I don't think it's him, by the way. I don't think CM Punk is the guy. I don't think CM Punk is going to be the name revealed tonight. Do I think CM Punk can appear for AEW in the future? I absolutely do. I really do. Do I think we've seen the last of CM Punk inside of a professional wrestling ring? I don't. A couple of years ago, I would have said I don't see it, but the more you hear Punk talk, especially over the course of the last sort of 12 to 18 months with the WWE Backstage show and some of the interviews that he's done, I don't think he has any desire, put it this way, I don't think he has any desire to get inside of a wrestling ring again. But I think he's open to it, and he's been quite frank about saying, look, it would require a lot of money, but it would also require the right story. And he's spoken about when it comes to AEW is a more attractive offer to him for a variety of reasons. One being the baggage that is there. When it comes to WWE, of course, it was a very messy divorce, wasn't it? I mean, when it went to court and CM Punk, there was a defamation lawsuit with the doctor in WWE and all that kind of stuff, being fired on his wedding day. All of that's still simmering. Even as time goes past and I know time heals all wounds, I understand that, but I just don't think he has an interest in going back into that environment of professional wrestling. And he's spoken about there being more opponents for him in AEW that he's interested in facing. The Kenny Omegas, the list goes on, the Darby Allins, all those kind of names that he's never faced up before. That interests him. So I could see CM Punk going inside of an AEW ring in the future. I think that's a possibility. Do I think it's a possibility tonight? It would certainly fit all the criteria. It really would. I do think there is maybe a slight bit of residual heat when it comes to CM Punk and AEW in the past. Remember when AEW was first becoming a thing, there was some conversations about Cody Rhodes reaching out to Punk via a text message, and Punk wasn't happy about that, and then went into an interview and said, well, they texted me, but I didn't know what that meant, and then AEW were unhappy that CM Punk had said that out loud, and there was heat there. I don't know. I really don't know. And then he signed with Fox to do WWE Backstage, so it could be CM Punk. It could be CM Punk. Just because he said it's not him doesn't mean that it's not him, because that's just the crazy world of professional wrestling, isn't it? That's how things work. I just don't see it tonight. I think if CM Punk was to appear for AEW, I don't even think they would tease it or anything like that. I don't think they would do this whole promotional campaign of this mystery Hall of Fame signing. I think he would just show up. I really do. I think he would just show up at the end of a pay-per-view, at the end of an episode of Dynamite, and the buzz from that alone, the explosion from that alone, I think would be what CM Punk and AEW would be looking for. Look at the way that he debuted on WWE Backstage. Obviously, there had been rumours. There had been rumours about auditions and all that kind of stuff, but during the actual dates and the show when he arrived on WWE Backstage, nobody knew about it. And it was about the reaction on social media. And I think he and AEW would be looking for the same thing. So I think if CM Punk does ever eventually end up inside of an AEW ring or an AEW television or whatever, I think it would be just a surprise random event at the end of the show, and I think it would be something like that. So I don't think it's CM Punk tonight. In the future, anything's a possibility. Anything's a possibility. Speaking of a possibility, though, I think this one is actually quite likely. That's OKADA. Now, OKADA for me, I mentioned that my prediction is for it to be Christian. If I had to pick my second choice, I think it would be OKADA, and actually, frankly, maybe OKADA is more likely. The reason I say that is because the reports are there. The reports are there and the pieces are in place for that to happen. There was a report, I think about a month or so ago, saying that OKADA was going to be involved in this AEW Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling working relationship that appears to have been forged. And OKADA was going to appear for either Impact Wrestling or AEW, with AEW, of course, being the most likely destination due to the increased exposure that it has. OKADA is absolutely Hall of Fame worthy. He is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, certainly in New Japan Pro Wrestling history. And OKADA appearing for AEW on a regular basis would be a massive, massive deal. It would be a massive statement of intent for AEW and New Japan as well, because it would really say, look, I mean, you talk about one of their crown jewels of New Japan appearing regularly for AEW. it would be a massive statement of intent that these two companies are working with each other, and there's going to be a lot more crossing over between the promotions. I think OKADA fits in the name of someone that's Hall of Fame worthy. I don't know how he fits into signed a multi-year deal. I don't know how that works out between AEW and New Japan. I don't know how he would be able to do the back and forth. I know the pandemic isn't what it was, a couple of months ago, but there are still massive restrictions in terms of flying to a different country, quarantining for a couple of weeks, all that kind of stuff. I don't know how that would work. I don't know if that would be a case of AEW sending a talent to New Japan in exchange for a couple of months. I don't know how that would work, but OKADA is absolutely a possibility. Absolutely a possibility. As I mentioned, my prediction is Christian, but I wouldn't rule out an OKADA. I think that, again, it would make a lot of sense. It would tick all the right boxes. It would certainly get a lot of buzz. Would it get the buzz of a Christian? I think it's different factions of the fan base. In terms of the wider audience, the more casual fan, would they know who an OKADA is compared to Christian? I think more people would know, casual fans would know who Christian is in comparison to OKADA. I think pro wrestling fans would know both very, very well. Again, I think this one's a possibility. I really do. I wouldn't rule out it being a New Japan name, and we'll touch on that in a second as well. Another name I've seen thrown around is Brock Lesnar. I really don't think it's Brock Lesnar, and I might be wrong, and if I'm wrong, then I'll be more than happy to eat a slice of humble pie on this one. I know people have been saying, wow, Brock Lesnar's merchandise has been pulled from the WWEshop.com, and that was an indication of Sting and other names going to AEW. I get that. Brock Lesnar to me is a WWE guy. Look, I think he likes pro wrestling. I'm not sure if he loves it or anything like that. I think that he obviously does it for the money. I think there's no doubt about that. But he's a Vince McMahon guy. He's very loyal to Vince McMahon, and I know he's Brock Lesnar, and people's going to say, well, if he only cares about the money, would AEW give him enough money? This is the thing with Brock Lesnar. This is why I really don't see it being Brock, is because Brock Lesnar's expensive for WWE. And I know that people will say, well, Tony Khan's got more money than Vince McMahon and all this kind of stuff. But if Brock Lesnar's expensive for WWE during regular time, not during a pandemic, then just think of how expensive he would be for AEW. Now, I'm not saying AEW can't afford him, because they can. There's no doubt that Tony Khan can afford a Brock Lesnar. He can afford that kind of contract. I just don't know if he would be wanting to do it. I'm not sure if he'd be able to get the commitment out of Brock Lesnar as well. Brock Lesnar only has a certain amount of dates for WWE a year. AEW doesn't really do that. They want everyone to be there pretty much every week for Dynamite, and Brock isn't going to do that. Brock isn't going to do that during a pandemic, absolutely. He's certainly going to do it outside of a pandemic. So, again, all of those factors, I don't see it. I think Brock Lesnar is incredibly loyal to Vince McMahon. I think if Brock Lesnar... I know that he's a free agent right now, and I know he's been a free agent pretty much since WrestleMania last year, but I think if Brock Lesnar wants to wrestle, he'll do it for WWE. And if he got a good offer from AEW, he would take it to WWE and say, give me more money. I'm going to turn them down, but give me more money. So, look, if it was Brock Lesnar, I mean, talk about big signings. I mean, Brock Lesnar's arguably one of the biggest combat sports attractions in the world, even at his age and even in 2021. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. And I know I've said that about quite a few people, and I might be wrong. I just don't know if Tony Khan I just don't see Brock Lesnar fitting. I just don't see Brock fitting. And Paul Heyman's in WWE as well, and Brock likes to be with Paul Heyman and doing the promos and all that kind of stuff. Again, I really can't see that happening. Would it be a massive signing for AEW? Of course it would be. It would be ginormous. But I just don't see it. I really don't see it. And I don't really see it ever happening. I really don't. Brock's loyal. Brock's very loyal to WWE. If he's wrestling, it's for WWE. If he's not with WWE, he's not wrestling. He'll do whatever. He is a very, very wealthy man from his years with WWE and UFC. And he can do what he wants. He really can. He can call his own shots. So I don't see it being Brock Lesnar. Finally, another name is NAITO. Again, I think this one is a possibility. Talk about a Hall of Fame worthy career. I mean, he was the first person to hold the IWGP Heavyweight Championship and Intercontinental Championship at the same time. That's certainly Hall of Fame worthy. As I mentioned when I spoke about OKADA, this one's a real possibility because of the relationship that looks to be there now between AEW and New Japan and Impact Wrestling. The same issues would be there when it comes to NAITO about OKADA, or NAITO with OKADA. The issues would be how does this work logistically in terms of the travel? Does he come over? Does he stay for a few months? Does AEW send someone to New Japan? How does that work? How do you sign someone to a multi-year deal that's already under contract with New Japan? Naito's been pretty clear about wanting to stay with New Japan forever. I don't think he has really any intention or desire to come and work for a promotion in North America. I think there's been interest before, but I really don't think he wants to do it. I think, yes, he was with Impact briefly as part of that New Japan relationship back in the day, but I think if anyone was going to come over from New Japan, I think it would be Okada. If it was going to be anyone from New Japan in this role, I think it would be Okada because of the reports and all that kind of stuff. Naito, I think it's less likely. I don't think it's an impossibility, but I'm just not sure if I see that happening. So, as I mentioned, if I had to predict it being anyone, right now I'm leaning towards Christian. But as I mentioned at the top of the video, I don't think anyone truly knows. And the only way to find out is to watch Revolution tonight, which you can do with us here on the watch along on the channel. So be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. You'll be notified when we go live. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on this mystery AEW Hall of Fame worthy signing? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about AEW, WWE, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, go up the rankings and get to people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening and streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak with you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.